everybody, and welcome to SWEN. We got some awesome content coming up that you're going to want to see, so stick around. We unfortunately don't have a sports segment this week, but I will give some reports on how the teams are doing as of late. This weekend, the volleyball team went to the championships against Inner Lakes, and they unfortunately lost. They, however, played an amazing season, winning every game but the championship, and everyone on the team absolutely gave it their all. Our football team will now be going to the championships, so good luck, Somersworth Hilltoppers. Now off to some Veterans Day interviews with Chaplain.
What branch did you serve in?
So I was active duty Army from 2000 to 2008.
I was in the Army Reserves. I started off in a dental unit and then went to nursing school and was in a general hospital. I served back in the 80s and got done in 1991 with Desert Storm.
The Marine Corps. I joined right out of high school in 2004. I did some active duty stuff, some inactive duty stuff, and basically spent about 10 or 11 years in and out of the Marine Corps. But started off with about 5 years straight away with active duty service.
Where did you serve?
Various places. I think I was in I was in Hawaii the longest. I was in Tripler, Hawaii for 3 years. I was in Fort Bragg for a couple years, Washington, D.C. for a year, Texas for a year, and part of that time when I was in Fort Bragg was spent in Iraq in 2003. And I was in Kuwait and Japan and a couple other places in the Pacific that I can't think of right now. I love D.C. The best year of my life was in D.C. I really enjoyed Texas. I didn't care for Hawaii at all for various reasons. I liked Iraq. It was fun.
I was stationed at Quantico, Virginia. It was my initial duty station. I spent a lot of time there. During my time, I also did a job transfer, sometimes called the lat move, into infantry and deployed to Iraq. So I did 2 tours in Iraq. One it's in the Diyala province and one's in Al Anbar. It was actually, I guess, kind of enjoyable. It was sort of one of the reasons why I joined the Marine Corps. So it felt like actually doing my job a little bit more. Obviously, it has some really scary events that can happen, and sometimes there's miserable situations, but for the most part, you have kind of like this camaraderie with your fellow Marines, and you're all kind of, we say like in the suck, but you're kind of there together, and so it just brings you even closer, and that feeling of camaraderie and kind of going through it together really just is kind of like a good feeling in the end.
What's one of like the most memorable things that's happened to you while serving?
I don't know, man. There's a ton of memorable things. It all feels like it was yesterday and today at the same time. I think the most memorable thing that I'll never forget is I was when the Twin Towers were hit on 9/11. We were in D.C. We were stationed at Walter Reed. So I've told this story before to various people, but like we saw the plane before it hit the Pentagon, just a few minutes before, and we would be not the absolute first responders, but we would be down at the Pentagon at about 12 or 12:15 that day, helping triage people that had been excavated from the Pentagon. So I was able to work with patients right after the plane hit the Pentagon. And I would later have one of those same patients like 6 weeks later while working in Walter Reed. And while dealing with this patient who had she had glass wounds from here up, like a million pieces of glass from the explosion. And I'm working where they're dealing with pain management. And George W. Bush came on in the patient's room while I was working with her. And I was a scared 18, I think it was 18, I might have been 19-year-old kid, not really knowing what to do if I have to talk to the president of the country. So I tried to just hide in the corner and, be ignored.
Did you end up talking to him at all, or?
Yeah, for like a minute or two. And then I met him again in Iraq 2 years later. I'm not sure he remembered me, but it was a cool little experience because you're never really picturing that happening, you know? Yeah, it was really interesting, and I'll never forget the lady or him.
I couldn't come up with one particular moment, but just meeting a lot of people and getting to travel was really awesome. We went to like San Antonio, Texas, also went to West Point. I've met one lady from Lynn, Mass, and we're still in contact. We've stayed friends. Yeah.
I think a nicer story would be why I joined the Marine Corps. So when I was in high school, I didn't know anything about the military whatsoever, and I decided I was going to join. So I started to just fill out. Back in the day, they would just mail you stuff from all the different branches, and so I filled the first one I saw out, and I mailed it back. And that was actually the Air Force that got back to me, and they were recruiting me, and I was just on board. I didn't know anything about it. I went up to my grandmother's house, and my grandfather, who was a retired Marine, was there as well. And she asked me, what are you going to do after high school? And I said, I'm going to join the military. And my grandfather immediately interrupted and said, oh, well, what branch? And don't say the Marines because you'd never make it. And that kind of did it for me right then and there. So I immediately said, yeah, actually, the Marine Corps. When I went back home, I talked to the Air Force recruiter and told him never mind, and marched into the Marine Corps recruiting office and signed up for the Marines. It was kind of funny, and I forgot that I never really told him that. And he was, of course, really proud, though. And he came to my boot camp graduation in Parris Island, South Carolina. And we happened to be out at a restaurant, and he ran into somebody else from my platoon who had heard that story. And so the person told me, he said, wait, are you Crutzen's grandfather? The one who told him that he wouldn't make it, and that's why he joined? And the grin on his face when he turned around and looked back at me, you know, and it was one of the few times that I saw him like tear up with pride, that just, you know, he had that kind of influence. But so that's why I joined the Marine Corps in general, was basically just to prove somebody wrong.
So is there any advice you'd like to give to students that plan on joining after high school?
Yeah, I would say like joining the reserves is a really good program. They will pay for your college education, and it's only 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the year.
What advice would you have to anybody that plans on joining the Army after high school?
Take it seriously. There's plenty of people that you can talk to that can give you advice. I would say if you're one of our Summersworth high school students, come chat with me for a little bit. It's been 15 years since I've been out, but I still remember a lot. I still have active duty friends now. You know, talk to people, even if they're in your own family, your uncle or older brother or something, about what their experience is, and see if it matches up with yours. And know that if you think about serving, you have the final call until you actually swear in at MEPS. So recruiters might try to tell you, well, this matters, this matters. None of that matters until you swear in at MEPS. Because recruiters have a specific job, and this isn't to talk bad about recruiters, but their job is like a sales job, right? They want to get you to sign up. Where my job's not that. My job is to make sure that whatever your future is, you're most prepared for it. So, you know, I'll tell you the great things that I experienced, but there's definitely things about it that I wish I could take back. I think you're definitely going to get good and bad with being in the military, right? And I think I saw a lot of both. But, you know, it did a lot to protect my future. You can make of it what you want to do. So if you, like, I knew I wanted to be on the East Coast. I knew I wanted to spend 3 years in Hawaii with one of my closest friends. I knew I wanted a job that wouldn't have me see combat, but then I was like the first on the ground in Iraq. So, you know, just have realistic expectations, and you can see the world and maybe attend college for free later on.
I would say do your research, do your homework, but take pretty much everything with a grain of salt. I've heard stories from a lot of people, like we call them like boot camp horror stories and things, and people like to embellish a lot. And so sometimes people will get kind of scared off from things because others have embellished those stories. But at the same time, we also hear horror stories of like someone being tricked by a recruiter and like, oh, they told me I could do this, but then when I signed my contract, it was actually like this. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but it may have been something that happened more in the past and isn't as prevalent as you may think. So that being said, even then, you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting into. So I would tell students to sit down and have a long conversation with their family and friends about these things, who know them best. Do some research online, especially about the different branches and the different options for joining. Talk to some people who served in general in the military, especially if they're from the service or the job field that they want to get into, and talk to recruiters. But from all those people, take what they say with a grain of salt, put it together for yourself, and assume that everybody's maybe 90% correct in what they're saying.
Yeah.
Now off to weather with Roman. Now for recommendations with Joey and Kyle.
Welcome to Recommendations. I am Joey.
I'm Kyle.
And we're going to recommend albums first as usual. I recommend Goodbye and Good Riddance by Juice WRLD because I had these lucid dreams.
I recommend Legends Never Die by Juice WRLD because I like the album, and also Rest in Peace.
Video game, I recommend Fortnite because the old map is back.
I recommend Roblox because you can build a boat for treasure.
Vacation spot, I recommend Disney World because it's very Disney.
I recommend O-Block for Chief Keef.
For game console, I recommend PS5. It has Spider-Man 2 and also $500.
I recommend the KFC console because you can cook chicken while you're playing the game.
That's all for SWEN this week. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week. Until next time, Summersworth, see you on the flip side.